Hello, everyone. We are officially live here with Keerthi. Hello, Keerthi. Good morning. Good morning, good night from where you are. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story today. And so nice to meet you, Fernando, in person after watching so many of your videos on the GMAT Club YouTube channel.
Oh, thank you. And I hope that, every time that I talk to someone, I want to show off my Hindi skills. They have been leveling up. Okay, so I promise I learned some new words because I said my goal is just to know how to say my pitch in Hindi. So I know part of it already. Can I just try it out for you
Yeah,
to review?
full disclosure, I am not a native of Hindi, so I'm from South India. We speak another language there, but I have seen enough Bollywood movies to know Hindi, so bring it on.
I will try it out and you tell me if it's minimally decent. So मेरा नाम फर्नांडो है और मैं दर्द में पड़ता हूँ मैं ब्राजील से हूँ लेकिन मैं यूएसए में रहता हूँ मुझे कूटे और घूमना पसंद है.
Okay, nice. Wow, that's really nice.
Thank you. I know it's not good at all, but thank you for being kind.
I mean, grammatically, I think it's as good as it gets. So I think you can walk into any North Indian home and ask for chai now.
So, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, gonna travel to India in one of the next few months, and definitely gonna try to do that. Thank you so much, Keerthi, once again for being here. And just before we start, I would like to thank everyone who is watching as well. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are. And say two things basically. One, remember to like our video and subscribe our channel. It really helps us to keep developing this content and having these amazing people as Keerthi here with us. And second thing, is we have starting on December 11th, so 2 days from now, the 12th day of Christmas, and it's a competition that we have at GMAT Club that has lots of prizes, including GMAT courses from Target Test Prep, Experts Global, Admissions Consulting from Avanti Prep, GMAT Club Tests, and all in all those prizes are worth $25,000. I would be running for that if I wasn't already at my MBA. And everyone must join the competition in order to be able to participate. And the link is right here in our video. So just click here to join and be able to be part of that and also get one of these many prizes. So that's it. Please feel free to send any questions, any comments that any of you guys have here in the chat to Keerthi. And the idea that I had here, Keerthi, tell me if you think that works, was just we going through your journey so far based on what you said on GMAT Club. If you guys haven't seen it already, Keerthi summarized her journey so far in one post, very, very clarifying post. And being now someone transitioning to consulting, Keerthi, I love the structure, like dividing into 3 areas, and I love it. And you guys feel free to take a look. And the idea is just going into it in different chunks. So like your introduction, your GMAT preparation, then your mock tests, how you did to Tuesday schools. Do you think that works nicely for you?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Nice. Amazing. Thank you so much once again. And I know that one of the things that everyone is very eager to know more about is about you, Keerthi, as a person. So could you tell a little bit more about where you come from, where you are now, and what motivated you to pursue the MBA?
Yes, thank you so much. I think that will be a great start to kind of give the context into my whole GMAT journey as well. So, hi everyone, I'm Keerthi, and I am born and raised in a village in South India. And I was always fascinated by technology, and so I did my undergrad at IIT Madras in India in electrical engineering. And after my undergrad, I moved to Japan actually to work in a technology company called Konica Minolta. Here I saw that how technology is impacting the masses, so I wanted to have that impact in the financial services industry as well. So I transitioned into a consulting role at Nomura Research Institute. So after working for a few months at Nomura, I realized that I am taking part more and more in meetings where I'm meeting with people of different backgrounds, and I started thinking more about what are the decisions that are being made by people who are higher up in the hierarchical chain. And that's when I started thinking of doing an MBA in order to understand more about the strategic areas of business. And that's how all this started. And I already had a GRE score, which I had done in my undergrad. And then when I talked to a few admissions consultants, they told me that it will be better if I try to improve that score before applying. So that score was 325. And so then I thought whether I should retake the GRE or GMAT. So then the GMAT thought for me was a better initial step towards an MBA, because a lot of the questions and the way of thinking, like the critical thinking and even RC, that it kind of motivates you to think in a more strategic way. And that's why I decided to take the GMAT in the first place.
Nice. Thank you so much for your answer. And it's great that you're living in Japan for how long, you said, Keerthi?
Yeah, so I moved here in 2019 October, so a little more than 4 years now.
And I do have to ask, because I went to Japan back in May. I spent
Okay.
around, what, 3 weeks there. What's your favorite food in Japan?
That's tough one. I would say gyoza, because it has the perfect mix of both filling as well as the outside part, and it's crispy and chewy at the same time. So I
Oh,
would highly recommend having gyoza when you come to Japan.
I love it. It even makes me hungry right now, but never mind. So the second question is exactly about what you were just saying. Now it's a perfect segue about taking the GMAT. So from what I understood from your answer, what led you to take the GMAT was basically already having a good jury score, but believing that this would increase your shots to get into an MBA school. Was that it?
Yes. So in terms of GRE, I am from an engineering background, so I think very analytically, right? So for GRE, I thought that I cannot really showcase my strengths, because it's a lot about vocabulary, learning a lot of new words and trying to think of the meaning of those words during the exam, which is a very high stress situation. So for me, the comfort zone is all mathematics and numbers. So I thought that that would be a better leveraged in a GMAT kind of setting, and that's what decided made me decide to take the GMAT as opposed to the GRE.
Nice. No, it definitely makes a lot of sense. And it's impressive that you could get like the GMAT score so high, 770 already on the first attempt. Congrats once again for that.
So much.
And transitioning to that part, Kirti, to your GMAT preparation. So could you elaborate a bit on the strategy that you adopted to master the concepts that were tested on the GMAT? So that's the first part of the question. And the second one was, how did you decide exactly, once you were mastering those concepts, how to divide your time between reading about them and really practicing, really doing some questions to sharpen up your skills?
Yes. I will first talk about how what was the way strategy, or kind of how to divide the time, right? So initially, what I did was I thought to myself not to give a deadline. So when you give yourself a deadline, the thing is that you kind of rush through the concept, and maybe there are 10, you say that okay, I'll finish 10 pages in an hour, and somehow you have only read one page in half an hour and you rush through the remaining 9 pages, and at the end of the day maybe you have not retained the concept very well. So I took away that deadline, and I told myself, okay, I will spend 5 hours every day no matter what, and whatever I read, I will make sure that I am retaining it properly in my memory. So that was the first context setting that I did for myself. And after that was done, there is this critical point where you think, okay, when do I stop reading and then start practicing? So for me, I started with a few questions first. So I will do a set of maybe 10 questions for a specific subtopic, and then watch the video explanation for those questions. And then I go back and solve those questions by using these concepts. So after that is done, I try to look what changed, right? So what was my initial response to this question, and what is the more prescribed, or what the instructor is suggesting us to do. So that was the way in which I learned it. And after this, I tried to do more practice questions in an untimed manner. So I think initially it's very important to give yourself all the time in the world to think about how to solve a question. And when you do these untimed questions, you have to make sure that you are checking your accuracy. So once the accuracy hits 90%, that's when I told myself that, okay, now I can move on to the timed practice part. So that's how I distinguished between timed practice and concept mastery. And this doesn't mean that you never go back to the concepts. So sometimes I feel that similar kind of questions are going wrong very often. So I go back and read my notes or watch some more videos about that specific topic.
That makes a lot of sense. And so you'd say, Keerthi, that it was basically you divided it into three phases. One, you would read the content. Two, you would go into untimed practice until you hit that 90% accuracy. And three, you would go into timed practice and really try to sharpen up how long you were taking to solve each question.
Yes.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And now I think this should have been the strategy I adopted, but it's too late now.
No, I think everybody has their own style. So it's very important to kind of figure out what works for you. So I think of it as very similar to kind of dieting or trying to lose weight. So there's no formula that works for everyone.
Love the comparison. And one thing, since you mentioned the style of each of us, one thing that I thought was really interesting that you said on your post was about letting go of intuition in favor of logic. And could you share an example of this mindset change that happened to you?
Yes, like this GMAT is a very stressful exam. And the moment you let yourself go and think too much, I think you have already lost half the battle. So I actually at GMAT Club, I was watching a video by Maria, and she talked about this kind of a mental coach. So first you need to figure out what kind of coaching style works for you. For some people, if you think of a bully, right, who at school who is making fun of you, like, hey, there's no way you can do this, that motivates you to do better. But for some people, something like a cheerleader, ki, hey, you can do this, like, I believe in you and stuff like that, that works. So you need to have that mental person in your head. So for me, the cheerleader thing works a lot. So at every second in the exam, when I saw myself thinking that I don't know this question, or am I going to run out of time, I try to cheer myself up. So that is one thing that's very important. And talking more about the intuition versus logic part, I always felt that for getting the right answer, you need to think more logically rather than intuitively, because once you cross the 700 mark, most of the questions are trap questions. So if you think of intuition, the question is designed in such a way that you'll go wrong. So what you need to do during the concept mastery phase is you need to retrain your brain to think to fall on the concept only and not on the intuition. So whenever I see any question, I try to think, hey, what kind of question is this based on what I studied, rather than, okay, what should I think the answer should be. So I, instead of thinking what should be the answer, I am always thinking what is the type of question, and for this type, how do I reach the answer. So that was my kind of process. And I think being very structured in the way in which you approach the question is super important, because you can always be tempted to just mark the first answer that feels right. So you have to let that feeling go.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know the pain of following, like you said, our intuition, just looking at it and saying, hey, maybe that's it. I'm going to gain some time here and go to the next one. And then the next question is like, you just realize that you shouldn't have done that. So it makes a lot of sense. And there is one question we got here, just good to remind everyone. You all can send any questions you have to Keerthi, and I'll also remember to like the video and subscribe to our channel here. So the question that we got, let me put it on the screen here from Yellow, is which resources, Keerthi, did you use for quant concepts?
Okay, so specifically for quant, so initially I'm sure everybody in their GMAT journey will take a mock test. So for my first mock, I already scored around 48. So I knew that quant would not be a big problem for me. So what I did was, initially I thought that I will just leave quant and focus on verbal. But then what I realized is I was taking too much time on each and every question. So I would try to create an equation, for example, and complicate the question in such a way which is not even required. So in terms of the resources, what I did was I went to whatever was available on the internet. I went back to the very basic, because I needed to make sure that I understand the scope of the question. So for, especially for engineers, we have learned calculus and derivatives, so many complicated things which are not even required for GMAT. So we try to think in the most complicated way which is not required. So I went back to the very basic and made sure that I understand that part. And whenever I am solving any question, I try to think of it in the basic concept term so that I can get it answered in the shortest time possible.
Nice. And that, I would say, definitely, I think, helps a lot. And something you mentioned about the timing, Keerthi. So both regarding this question and what we were talking about earlier, and still in the general GMAT prep. So how would you select the questions you would practice during your timed session? So let's say you were going to practice 10 questions during a timed session. Would you get them randomly, or would you pick and choose?
So, in the type of question or the level of difficulty will really depend on where you are at your journey. So, for me, for quant, I only did very advanced questions because I knew that that's where I need to really focus. And when it came to RC, I started with the simple passages and slowly worked my way up to the LSAT. And I think the GMAT Club forum quizzes also have a sort of filter which you can easily adjust and pick and choose the questions that you are going to do. So that's very important. Even the official guides have difficulty level sorted, so I would encourage to use that as well.
Amazing. And one thing that people really get help from is their error log. So, did you effectively use one, Kirsty? And how did you use it to identify your weaknesses and work on those?
Yes. So the error log is one of the most important parts of your prep, I would say, because at the end of the day, it's just you and the question that's in front of you. And knowing yourself is very important. And knowing your weaknesses, that's where the error log comes in. So once your concept mastery is over and you start doing your timed prep, that's when that's when you officially start keeping an error log. So in the error log, I used to it is just essentially a table or an Excel sheet, whatever is comfortable for you. And I used to track a few things for each and every mistake that I made. So one of it will be the source of the error, so that sometimes this happens that you have been practicing for so long that you don't even remember where this question came from. So in order to mitigate that, you need to have a kind of just write in a word where this question actually came from, which book, which page number, which question number, and then what was my answer, what is the right answer, and then whether it was a silly mistake. Like some people say that, oh, I'm making too many careless mistakes, but the answer to not making careless mistake is not just being careful. You have to dig a little deeper and understand where you're going wrong. So whether it's a silly mistake or not, and what is their explanation, and essentially why you went why did you go wrong, that's what you're trying to figure out uh, using an error log. So you need to have that as one section as well. So why did you go wrong, where did you go wrong? So these are the things that you track. And then every time you so every day I used to do practice, and the error log keeps increasing every day, right? So it's easy to just forget about the initial part of the error log, and so that's something that you should not do. So whenever you add something to the error log, go back to the very beginning and try to read it so that you can identify the patterns. So it's not something that you wrote in the error log and it's over. Error log is something that you keep revisiting so that you understand where is your weakness. So weakness is essentially the place where you're going wrong many times, right? So if there is a specific area where you're going wrong many times, you need to go and revisit that part and try to brush up those concepts. And that is one part, that you brush up your concept. And another thing where the error log comes in handy is when you are actually in the test and you see a question, and then you identify that, oh, this is one of my weak areas, so then you can pay more attention. Or when you are really running out of time and you see a question where you know that it's a weak area, you can take a risk and skip or guess that question and go to the next one.
Nice. And two very nice things that you commented, Keerthi. One of them is exactly the part of the actionable advice for you to give yourself there, because this is something we hear a lot in the MBA as well. Like you said, be more careful. It doesn't really talk to what you should do differently on the next time. Be more careful. It's so generic that it doesn't really help to really being straight to the point and okay, what exactly I will do differently next time. And the second part about organizing the data, as you mentioned, and really having a way to diagnose your weaknesses. If people's error log to be very big, we even now have Chat GPT, which you can use. They do have some APIs where you just throw the data and say, hey, just tell me where, like in areas ABC, which is the one where I have been getting more questions wrong. So we have all the ways to make it nowadays. And we got one more question, Keerthi, from Palav. Thank you, everyone, sending questions. Send as many as you want. And remember to like the video and subscribe the channel. I have to say it lots of times, so you guys remember doing it. And the question we have here from Palav is, how many questions did you practice for each section, and from where? You kind of touched upon that already, but would you have any further comments on that?
Yes, excellent question. So let's go section by section, right? So for quant, I did official advanced questions, and the key is not to do as many questions as possible. The key is quality over quantity. So make sure that if you are at the timed phase, I would say do around 30 questions at a time, which is going to be as equal to the section. And this is not like suddenly you start doing 30 questions. So initially maybe you will do 10 questions a day, and you slowly build up that stamina for the full sectional part. So before that, after each section is over, so for example you have already studied about geometry, then you can start doing 5 questions a day from geometry in a timed manner. So that is for quant. And for verbal, in I will break down further into the different question areas. So for RC, RC was actually the very first thing that I started learning, because I thought that it would need a lot more time, because it doesn't come very naturally to me to kind of read an article and understand more about the holistic part of it. So for RC, after I was done understanding the concepts and strategies, I did 5 passages per day, every day until my test day. So this was also from the official guide as well. And after, if I felt like the official guide is like I'm not in a mood for official guide today, I would do LSAT passages, which I sourced from a friend. LSAT passages are a bit more longer, so after you do those, you will feel like you have enough stamina, and the actual exam questions will seem a little easier, so which is always good. It's good to kind of push yourself more, because in the exam day you will feel extra pressure, and even the things that come naturally to you usually will feel unnatural and forced. So for CR, also actually all the okay, I'll just say this in the beginning. The source for all was official guide, and I also used GMAT club questions, because official questions are the best resource, I would say, to practice, since they emulate the real questions. And for CR as well, I did 15 questions per day, in a timed manner. And SC also. So this happened as my study was going on. So once RC was over, I started the practice for RC. And then when CR was over, I added the CR also to the practice. And slowly, I was practicing all types of questions every day.
Perfect. And in this, on those same lines, Chrissy, we got here a question from Jatin, that he asks, in the overall critical reasoning section, I'm facing difficulty in evaluating assumptions specifically. Do you have any tips for this?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that question, because I was also just thinking today about my experience with CR. So for me, overall in CR, what helped was to uh, kind of visualize the whole situation, right? So, for example, there is a question about a juice manufacturer revenue increased but profit did not increase. So this seems like a very technical thing, so I try to make it like a story. So I think about, okay, juice manufacturer, so let's take Fanta for example. It's a bad example. Okay, let's take Tropicana, and they're a juice manufacturer. So what can the revenue be? So let's say the revenue was 100 and it became 50. So I try to visualize it and put it into numbers. And then what I do is, so I have thought so much, and probably I have written down in the whiteboard also 150. So you already feel like you have made some progress. And then as you go to the option, you can add more numbers. You can come up with some scenario which will help you to think more about the question. And that's what helped me to think more clearly in CR, more generally. So now talking about evaluate, I think there are a few strategies that are floating around on the internet. And I'm a little bit rusty on the specific strategy, because I took the exam back in December last year. But if my memory is correct, so for evaluate, what you need to do is, for each option you think of the yes and no scenario, right? So if it is yes, would it work, and if it is no, it would it work. So if both give you a specific answer, then that would be the correct option. So if you can think, if you can, maybe somebody can post a question in the comments or something, and we can deep dive into it. But for evaluate, you take each option and go to the extreme of both of the scenarios. That would be the main strategy that I use. And for assumption is also very similar. So the interesting thing with CR is, most of the question types are actually, they are all sitting on the same base, right? So for evaluate also, they are asking about the assumption only. So for evaluate, for example, they are saying that uh, they have a specific option which is formed like a question, right? And if it is yes, then that would be an assumption. So you can apply the same concept in most of the questions, and visualizing the situation using something that is very relatable to you will help you to reach faster to the answer.
And I love the strategy of, from what I understood of what you said, Keerthi, of basically transforming the questions in something that more uh, concrete for you, right? Be it into another story that you would know better, or into numbers. I love it. And also from Jatin, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If I'm not, please feel free to tell me at the chat. And I'm sorry for that in advance, if that's the case. He's asking also how much time you will spend in the analysis of those questions, if it was on the higher end or lower end.
I would say higher, very, very higher. So I never thought that I would spend so much time. So this was one of the most frustrating parts of my prep, because I thought that the concept mastery would be the difficult part. I have to spend a lot of time understanding, but turns out that analysis is more important than I had initially thought it would be, because you need to really think what went wrong, and it may not be so obvious to you in the very beginning. So for example, in quant I was struggling with very seemingly easy looking questions which say a divided by b equal to something something, and the question will just be an equation and it will be a ds question, and I go wrong every single time. So I had to really think about how can I do this better. So it turns out that in terms of the numbers that I'm taking to evaluate my option, I was not taking fractions, or I was not taking decimal numbers which are negative. So I used to take decimal numbers which are only in the positive. So so you need to find out exactly where you are going wrong, and not only that, what is the flaw in your method. So there's a lot of there are so many methods that people are prescribing you to do, and you might be thinking that, "Hey, I'm applying the method but I'm not getting the answer." So it's very likely that in that case you are missing some critical part of one of the small steps. So you really need to dig down and understand which is the part that you're missing, and how can that lesson help you in similar questions. So yes, a lot of time will be gone in analysis. I'm so sorry, but that's the reality, and it helps you at the end of the day to master your technique, and I think it is a critical part of the preparation process.
Perfect. The good part is that, as you said, it's not wasted time, it's an invested time, right? So
Yes.
great. And even to transition to another chunk here of our chat, Keerthi, is still on the GMAT preparation for the mock tests. So, how did you integrate mock tests in your preparation?
Okay, so there are, I would say three. Okay, well, let's go back to the consulting thing and say three kinds of mock tests that I took. One is a sectional mock, and second would be sorry, one would be topic wise mock, second is sectional, and last would be full length mock. So topic wise mock just means that you are taking 10 or 20 questions of a specific topic and timing them and doing an error analysis at the very end. And sectional means that you do an entire section, either verbal or quant. So what when do you start doing this is after you finish your concept mastery of that entire topic. And for this also, error analysis is very important. And the third and very important is the full length mock. So after I had finished reading through the concepts of all the topics that were available, I started doing full length mocks. So for me, the aim for the full length mock was to emulate the real exam condition in such a way that it won't be a new thing for me when I actually take the exam. So that is why I decided to take it at home only. So I took the online version, and I tried to emulate it as much as possible. So I used to have the time also fixed. I used to take out all the prohibited items from my room. And so what you need to be careful of is to train your brain to fall back into that exam taking mode during the full length test. So just one more thing that I would like to quickly add is that taking mock test doesn't mean that you are never looking at the concepts ever again. So based on your error log and where you think that you are weak, you need to go back and read the concepts.
Nice. And you mentioned, Chrissy, about the importance of making your mock test environment as a real test day environment. And was there anything else that you used to do? So you mentioned taking out prohibited items and really focusing on the mock test. Anything else that you would normally do?
Yes. So I would say specifically two things that came to my mind is, one is the water and snacks, right? So you are only allowed to have a clear water bottle on your desk, and you're not allowed to have a mouse, for example, external devices connected to your laptop. So I used to do that. And also in between the exam you can have some snack or anything. So I would encourage any of the test takers to experiment with whatever they are comfortable with, because okay, this may seem very silly, but test day is very important, right? So you want to minimize the uncertainty of that day in any way that you can. And another thing that I did was playing with the shortcut keyboard shortcuts. So some people use the mouse to select the option, so you use your mouse and you kind of move it and then select the option, and then you have to press next, and then there's this again, like, are you sure? There's this dialogue that opens up that says, are you sure? Then you have to press yes again. So what I saw that the mouse with the mouse or trackpad, it takes a bit more time compared to when you use your keyboard shortcuts. So instead of going and clicking yes, you can just say command y, and it's the same thing, but it saves a ton of time. So these are the things that you can play around with and finalize, so that you can minimize the uncertainty on the test day. And I think, yeah, that's oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remembered. So it's the whiteboard, right? So initially when you start preparing, I was just using my iPad or just a plain old notebook and piece of paper. But after my prep was over and I was reading more about GMAT, I realized that, oh, you're supposed to use a whiteboard. So then I started practicing with the whiteboard. So I did all my timed with the my with it. And slowly I started doing all my full length mocks with the whiteboard as well. Using the whiteboard is also a kind of art, I would say. There are many strategies in which you can maximize the space and structure the way in which you are thinking about the question. So I would encourage to use the whiteboard also as soon as you can.
And I must say that nothing of it is silly, no part at all. Even because when you were talking, Kirsty, have you ever read a book called Atomic Habits?
Yeah, I've not read it completely, but yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah.
I read it maybe last month. It's a really nice book, and it's something that uh, you talking reminded me a lot. That is when many people neglect 1% improvements that sometimes they have or they do, but when you combine all of these 1% improvements, you get like a compound interest effect. So like you said, the water bottle, the environment, the mouse, the shortcuts, when you combine all of those, I mean, the result, you're here to show us that the result is amazing. So absolutely, I love this. And Palav even asked a question about mocks. So, would you say, Kirsty, that as you went over the mocks, your score increased, or you didn't really see so much movement in how well you were scoring in those mocks?
So, in the very beginning, when I took my very first mock without any preparation, I scored around 680. So, then that's when I thought that, okay, I need some prep, but maybe I don't need a lot of preparation. Maybe I'm already there. But then I realized that to cross the 700 mark and even to go beyond 730 is a little bit difficult, because as the difficulty level increases, you get more trap questions, which means that your basics should be really solid. So in terms of mock, I would say that my score was fluctuating from 730 to 770 kind of. So it was not a very straight line thing. And more than what the score is, it's important to understand where you went wrong and at what point. So for example, there is also a distribution, right? So did you go wrong in the very beginning or at the very end? So if you go wrong in the very end, it may be showing that you are getting tired or so. These are the things that you need to pay more attention to. And another thing that you should focus on is when do you stop taking mock test and when do you tell yourself that, okay, I'm ready to take the real test. So for me, I think after three mocks were around the target score, which was 750 plus, and three consecutive mocks were around there, I booked my test. And I think that was 1 month later. and I gave myself 1 month of time to keep preparing and fine tuning. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the answer. And as we move to the next questions, I'm going to just take advantage of our 40-minute mark to ask everyone again to like this video, to subscribe to our channel. That helps us a lot to keep producing this amazing content for you all. So you mentioned, Keerthi, that you took the online test. So what basically, why? That's a summary of the question. Why did you choose the online test instead of the in-person one?
Yes. So I already had taken the GRE at a test center, so I had that experience. And for me, home is the most comfortable place. So when I saw that there is an option to do that, I felt, wow, this can be great, because at home I know where everything is, and I basically, it's a very personal choice. So for me, it felt comfortable that I'm in front of my laptop and I have my own things with me. And for me, small things matter. So it's like I know where the washroom is, for example. So I just felt that that would be best. So you can take this with a pinch of salt, really, because I know some friends whose at home test taking did not go very well. So there is this whole room check that they do. So what they do is, you have to take your laptop and take the camera across the whole room, and if there are any items, you need to remove them. And one more caution that I would give is that at any point, if you go out of the camera frame, so for example, if you have a kind of narrow table and you're keeping your whiteboard beside the laptop instead of in front, so if in front I'll be writing like this, but if it's beyond, I may go outside the frame like that, and then that would cause the moderator to stop the test, and it'll cause a lot of unnecessary panic. So in terms of taking the at home test, it's very important that you read all the instructions. So I had read the instructions word by word, so I knew that I should not go outside the frame. So that is one thing. So I would say weigh both options and see what would work well for you, and choose it. And then I would say, okay, just one more thing that I did not account for is that, so in my house there is a childcare nearby, and I took all my mock tests during Sunday. So at that time the childcare is on, it's not operational, but my real test was on a Friday and the childcare was optional. So the first half of my first 30 minutes of my exam was full of children screaming and playing. So so you have to be ready for any kind of scenario. So that's just something that I would say.
It was an extra test for you to focus, right? With all those kids just screaming on the background, you were there like trying to focus on the questions.
Yeah, I was like, I just need to read this question, let's go, we only have 2 minutes to do this question or whatever.
And I that panic factor that you mentioned resonated a lot with me for the GMAT online, because I did took it once. One of my tries was the GMAT online, and I have a bad habit of sometimes when I'm going through a question, moving my mouth, moving my lips,
Oh
like
yes.
I'm not even saying anything, but just moving my lips to process information. And every time I would get from the proctor a message like, "Hey, maybe I will have to to
Yeah,
cancel the
even
test
that's
because
something that they say, that you should not speak, but then lip movement is also something that they really look at. Yeah.
yeah." So definitely, your advice, I think, is straight on point of being extra careful about which option you choose, which best suits you. And I would say that even what we had been talking about, getting your prep that extra layer helped you maybe with the kids on the background and everything, because you have been practicing with so many factors involved already. You were so used to this environment already that all those 1% improvements just factored in and made you, even with all the noise in the background, be able to be really successful in the test. So before we go to the next part, Keerthi, of in the last 15 minutes here of the application, of the school's essays, is there anything else you would like to tell people that are watching us about the GMAT, about test taking, about preparation? Anything you think we haven't really touched upon?
Yeah, so one thing that I would actually a little bit more stuff that I would like to talk about in terms of the prep and specifically using the whiteboard. So what helped me in terms of tracking time was to have it written down in the very beginning of the test. So in the very first 10 seconds, I would invest the time to just write down, like, so for example, for quant, I said that every question roughly should take 2 minutes. So I would write 9, which is the time marker. So 9, 18, and so on. And for 9 minutes, it would be 18 questions, right? So 18, 36, and so on. So this grid serves as a guide as to my timing. So instead of worrying about time at every moment during the test, I would worry about it only every 9 minutes. So at the 9 minute mark, I would kind of look at which question number I am at, and then I will make a decision. I have to go faster, or I can go a little slower as long as the answers are correct. So this helped me a lot to reduce the panic in terms of the time. And second thing is having the 5 dashes. So I think many people have touched upon this. So for GMAT, I think most of the answers come through elimination rather than selection. So for every question, I think for every topic other than DS, so I will talk about DS a little later. So it is always good to have 5 dashes. So these 5 dashes represent the 5 options: A, B, C, D, and E. And as soon as you read the question and you start looking at the options, of course you will go through it one by one, but you may see that, for example, option C is obviously not correct. So then you put a cross over the third mark, and you go eliminating one by one like that, and the one that's left will be the answer. So this helped me a lot to eliminate the answers. Otherwise you will be thinking, okay, C is not it, oh, what was it? So you may go back and forth in between the options. So this avoids a lot of confusion. And for DS also, it is very easy to go wrong. For me, DS was the Achilles heel when it come to quant. So what I did was I wrote 1 and 2. So 1 is the first statement, 2 is the second statement. So first I will look at only 1, then I will so after looking at only 1, if it is sufficient, I would just put a tick mark. And then I will go to 2, and I will look at only 2. And if that itself is sufficient, I would put a tick mark. Then I would take both together. So you get the gist, right? So you have to go about it in a very structured way. And having these kind of frameworks, like having dashes or having 1 and 2 written, will help you to have a kind of template in which you can structure your thoughts. So this is again tapping back into not relying on intuition versus having logic, right? So this template helps you to be more logical rather than think about intuition. And just some overall thoughts is that it's very important to not give up. So at many point I have felt that I am not improving at all. So just, I think one day before the exam, I was redoing some of the quant questions that I had done on the very first day. So the very first topics of arithmetics and stuff like that. And I did those questions, and some of them were wrong. So I went back to the worksheet of when I had done them on the very first day, and I was so shocked to know that they were the exact same questions that I had gotten wrong on that first day. And I was panicking, thinking that, oh my god, seems like I have not learned anything in the past 6 months. So it's important to trust yourself and not give up, and keep going anyway. So I promise you it's going to be worth it.
I absolutely love it. These final tips about the GMAT itself, because basically, of the first one I heard is being extra organized in a way that you can minimize all the brain energy you have to spend right in the test day, so you
Yes.
can minimize how you spend it in other ways that not directly solving the questions. And two, something that I also absolutely agree with, just keep pushing it, because we know that so many people when they are sometimes when they give up is that exact moment when they were about to cross that line, to cross that bump, when they would improve. So absolutely love it. And to go to this last part of our chat, Keerthi, everyone, if you want to send more questions, please feel free. We are moving now to the part of the applications, but even if you have questions about the GMAT, we can absolutely take them. For so you went there, you took the test, you got your 770 score, and then you said, okay, now I'm gonna start my application, my essays, and applying to business schools. So, what was the first step that you took? So, once you had the 770 GMAT, what was the first step you took after that?
Okay, so I will just give you a little bit more about where I am right now and how has that been, and then I will talk more about like what I think should be the first step. Because if I tell you what my first step was, I would definitely not advise anybody to do that. So okay, so I had already started my conversation with a few people already in this space and trying to understand what needs to be done in order to apply. So in round two, I did end up applying to one school. It was quite a rushed application, so I did not get through. And then that's when I started talking to more people and trying to understand each and every school more deeply. So what I would recommend as the initial very first step is go to the schools go to the websites of the schools that you're interested in, write in your email address and register. Then you will get invites to a lot of events that the schools are hosting, and even portals like GMAT Club are super useful in that they conduct a lot of events, panel discussions. These are very important because they help you to understand the vibe of the school, or the kind of people that they attract, or what is more important to them. Because in terms of business school, the fit is very important. So for you, not only professionally but also personally, you would want to be in an environment where you thrive. So doing that initial research, so first so I am I did not have a lot of business background in terms of my family. Also, like my family is comprised mostly of doctors. So I did not understand a lot about this business world in the very beginning. So taking part in these panel discussions helped me to understand what they are looking for. And after attending panel discussions, I was able to reach out to a few students in these schools and have more coffee chats and conversations about what their experience has been. So these two are the things that I would highly recommend students to do as soon as they start thinking about schools that they want to apply to.
Perfect. And so once you had these schools, let's say that you selected, you had, let's say, some schools that shared some common aspects that you selected to apply. So what was your approach to starting to write your essays and even getting the recommendations?
Okay, so I initially went and approached a lot of admissions consultants and trying to understand about what is their process, how do they do things. So for women in business, there are many support groups as well. So for example, there is one called Forte, and there is other communities like Consortium. So these are things that you can leverage to understand more about the essay writing and application process. And also in terms of recommenders, you want people who are willing to vouch for you. So I would say that recommendation is very unique and important aspect in the application, in that that is a place where uh, you are hearing about the applicant from a third person. So you need to make sure that the person that you ask for the recommendation is willing to kind of, for lack of a better word, take a bullet for you, right? So be very think a lot about who your recommender is going to be, and also try to make sure that if they are from complementary aspects of your life, that's good, right? Because then they won't be talking about the same things. And in terms of an application, everything is real estate. So you have to be able to use it in a very good way, that you don't want to repeat the same things. You want to, all these pieces of the puzzle should come together and show the admissions committee who you are in a more holistic way.
Perfect. That sounds great. And I, once again, completely agree. And before I ask you the last question, Keerthi, just would like to remember everyone that we have upcoming the 12 Days of Christmas competition. I love that 12 Days of Christmas music. I won't even start to singing it here. But it includes a lot of prizes, $25,000 worth of prizes. The competition starts this Monday, December 11th. So be sure to click on this link that you are seeing right now and sign up to participate. And also remember to subscribe to our channel and like our video. And the last question, Keerthi, that I would like to ask you is, where should we expect to see you next? What are your plans now? You don't have to say the school. I wouldn't put you on that pressure. But what are your plans for the next few months from now?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Even I have been thinking a lot, and when I went back home to India for a few days 2 weeks ago, that's what all my relatives have been hounding me. So yeah, so professionally, I will love to continue what I'm doing. So for me, business school is just a way to accelerate what I have been wanting to do in my life. Not more like a pivot, but more of a addition to help me get there a bit faster and in a more efficient way. So I would continue what I am doing in the financial services space. And personally, last year has been a bit of a journey, and I have learned a lot, and I am so thankful to all the people that have supported me in this. So I would love to give back, and this video is just one of my ways of saying thank you to the GMAT club community. So I would love to continue to do that. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Keerthi. Any final words, any final tips that you would like to leave here?
Yeah, so as I said before, it's important to not give up. And another important lesson that I learned throughout my GMAT and MBA journey, and I still continue learning, is not to rush through stuff, because especially I think at this age group, there is this feeling that time is running out, and there's a little bit of FOMO as well, that a lot of people are doing something and, oh my god, I need to do something as well. It's um, it's a long journey and it's a marathon. So make sure that you are thinking more about what you want to do and where you want to go, and don't be afraid to take some time for yourself to do that reflection and figure out if what the path you are on is right or not. So don't worry too much about the time that is passing, but make sure that you are making choices that are right for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Keerthi, for sharing your journey with us, for sharing all of your amazing advice. I can say that definitely I'm going to take them for me. And thank you, everyone who was watching here. Oh, see who sent a message. I'm so proud of you, Keerthi. This is your little sister from India. Heart, 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 heart.
Thanks, Deepthi. I don't know who sent her this link, but I will text her and figure out. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And thank you so much, Fernando. This has been a delight.
Thank you so much. My pleasure, Keerthi. Thank you so much, everyone who is watching. Be sure to keep connected to us for the upcoming competition and all the other videos. And once again, thank you so much. You all have a great weekend. Bye.